Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro, and we're doing post-Bafta predictions, just general talk about the state of the race. You know, with some of these categories, I almost feel like I'm becoming a little too certain.
If there was only certainty, and no doubt, there would be no mystery, and therefore no need for faith.
It's our friend Matt Neglia from Next Best Picture.
You look anxious. Everything under control?
It's under control now that you're here, Cardinal Negloni. Do you mind
What?
sharing, or?
No. This is for me.
All right.
Cardinals only. Divine right. From the Holy Father.
You seem a little excited about the BAFTAs.
It was a good night for Conclave, for Focus Features. They won 4 awards and have positioned themselves now in a point where they could possibly contend in Best Picture against Anora. Possibly. I say this because they still need to win SAG Ensemble.
Needs to win SAG Ensemble. That's right.
If they don't do that, Anora's got too much of a front.
Anora, that girl committed all kinds of sins. I think that Conclave would be a much more pure film for the culture. The culture doesn't agree with that.
No comment.
So we agree, I think, that in order for Conclave to be competitive, it has to have SAG under its belt. Or else, really, you have to say Anora, right?
And even then, Anora still has a lead.
Even then, I would still say Anora, look, too. What we know is this. The guilds matter the most. You have to win at least one of the guilds to win Best Picture. We've had winners that have just won DGA in The Departed. We've had winners that won just WGA with Moonlight. Anora has PGA, DGA, and WGA. The only movie that has lost with that combo is Brokeback Mountain. But then it lost to a film that had the SAG and WGA combo with Crash. The SAG WGA combo is quite sneaky. Now, if we want to, for the sake of argument, just imply that Conclave would have won WGA,
Sure.
and then say maybe, if that wins SAG, that is a case for an upset.
Hypothetically, with Conclave winning the BAFTA for editing now, maybe you could infer it is the Ace Eddie winner. But those are not the circumstances that we're in. That is not the case of this year. So you can't really go by those same rules of the what ifs. All you can do is look at where we're at right now. And right now, as of this recording, Oscar voting is still going on. It's going on until tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so there is still time for Conclave to build up momentum post-BAFTA win. It's just not going to get it, though, with SAG. The SAG speeches this year are going to have no bearing on the final Oscar voting. But the winners might give us an indication of where the winds are blowing.
The issue I see with Conclave winning, even if it wins SAG, is this seems like a year where we don't really have a narrative out front for the Best Picture winning film, like a strong narrative. And I think what's anchoring Anora to that position, even if it's not hanging on that tightly, is just that it's the most acclaimed film of the year. I don't really see a strong case for how Conclave would get more passion than something like Anora. Well, people think it's, Conclave's number 2 and 3 on all the ballots, but I feel like these preferential ballot arguments, I don't see them coming true that often. Usually the film that wins is getting a lot of number 1 votes. I haven't seen a movie where it's just so clear that that wasn't people's number 1s, but it was number 2 or 3 or whatever. Or it's pretty
both
obviously.
Need to have faith.
Oh.
You need to have faith in Conclave.
I guess that's the missing ingredient that I don't understand. So you think there's hope for Conclave?
Hope? No, Cole. There is no hope. No, I
think people who do have Conclave might have a little too much faith.
In all honesty, seriously, I think it is Anora. Sorry for all the Cardinals I'm upsetting right now. I truthfully and honestly believe that no matter what happens, Anora's winning Best Picture. The real question that we all need to be asking ourselves is, what is its win package? Because CCA proved that it could win Best Picture and nothing else. Spotlight, in its year, proved that a film could win Picture, Screenplay, and nothing else. Baker's got the DGA. We all know from the
Huge.
Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu versus Richard Linklater year and the Tom Hooper versus David Fincher year.
Yeah.
You can win just DGA and lose CCA, BAFTA, and Golden Globe and still win the Oscar. So there's a very, very good chance that Baker, I think, is still going to win director over Brady Corbet.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's got picture and director then. Does it also take actress and screenplay? One or the other? And I know Conclave won BAFTA for editing, but that's where Conclave won Best Picture. If Conclave's not winning Best Picture with Oscar, does Oscar go the other way and give it to Anora instead?
I actually think that we need to cut it out with the editing equals Best Picture thing. This is my hot take of the day.
Okay.
I think we're overestimating it. I think that
We're on a kind of a hot streak because of Everything Everywhere and Oppenheimer.
those movies were the most edited movies, however you look
like
at it.
prior to Everything Everywhere, editing didn't go along with Best Picture for quite some time.
Yeah.
Quite some time.
And-
And
and some-
those films, like Everything Everywhere, made a ton of sense to win that award. Like it's the only BAFTA.
And Oppenheimer made a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
even if you go back,
Even
The
if you
Departed
treat
made
them like
sense.
craft movies, only.
Crash made sense. Like,
yeah.
these are movies that have like the most editing. Anora doesn't fit this at all.
The last film that
At
didn't
all.
have like that one without having like the most flashy editing was Sound of Metal.
That was a
I feel like
tied
we're-
to the sound category too.
Yeah, yeah.
Anora doesn't have that. Also, I feel like Sound of Metal won because people thought of Whiplash,
Drums.
but they didn't even. He didn't play the drums for a lot of it because he was too couldn't hear.
Weren't you on Wicked for like a day?
I was on Wicked for 5 days.
Okay.
I
But
can't see.
you were thinking of the sound correlation, though.
I was also thinking that like Wicked has a lot of tech nominations. I think about the Defying Gravity sequence. Like it definitely builds up to multiple crescendos
Yeah.
in that scene, going in and out of the music. And I thought, if we don't really have that clear of a winner, and let's say BAFTA goes with something like Dune or Kneecap that's not
Right.
even nominated, then
I think if BAFTA
all
went with
hell's
Dune or
loose.
Kneecap, you could justify Wicked
Anything.
or anything really.
Yeah.
So that's where I was thinking it could go. You were even predicting Kneecap, so you were kind of being consistent.
Well, now
by
I
saying
think
it
it's
would be
Conclave
Wicked,
because
yeah.
I even though Conclave doesn't have any tie to the sound category whatsoever, what probably wasn't even very close, it just makes the most sense. Like if we're actually examining the editing category on like
A craft
most
level.
skilled editing,
Yeah, you just look
maybe
at it as
it's
a
maybe
craft
not even the
category.
most editing either. Conclave's not the most editing, and it's not nominated for sound. At the same time, it's kind of a thriller. Everybody can acknowledge, it's a well-paced, tight movie. I think the editing's really great in it, and it makes enough sense that like there's not a movie that really fits this most editing or like has that sound tie-in.
Well, it kind of is.
What do you think it is?
Amelia Perez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely
Yeah.
has the definition of
If it
most
won
editing.
BAFTA,
I agree. And, a lot of people have been saying that Amelia Perez is dead.
Yeah.
There's a chance it may not win any of its nominations. That's not happening.
No. It's going to win some.
Amelia Perez is winning at minimum 2
Yeah.
for Zoe Saldana and Song.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they could just cap it there, and I do think it's obviously like hurting the campaign with everything that's ensued. Just the dog pile on top of that film, I think it does hurt it for some of its wins. Kind of in the same way that Maestro didn't take makeup, but we were aware of what Maestro wasn't going to take or was in jeopardy at the time that BAFTA happened.
Wait, Maestro had controversy.
No, but it lost steam, basically.
Yeah.
By
I mean,
the time
Maestro
we got
lost
done.
makeup
Yeah, sure,
to Poor
sure,
Things,
sure.
right? I mean,
Poor Things definitely had a surge
Yeah.
as voting went on because it did well at the box office.
Yep.
More people saw it, and I do think that something similar could happen with I'm Still Here, where as more people are seeing it now that it's a Best Picture nominee, that is potentially pulling some votes away from Amelia Perez.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a Best Picture nominee, I'd say signed, sealed, and delivered. It won
Right.
CCA, it won Globe,
Right.
it won
Yeah.
BAFTA. Why are you betting against it?
Right.
But because I'm Still Here has a Best Picture nomination, this is unprecedented. We've never seen 2 international films with Best Picture nominations go up against each other in this category.
yeah. And
So-
I think the timing is on its side, right? Like things kind of peak and then they dip, and I'm Still Here is like right at the very peak
It's
of where
still
it could
here.
be because they watch it right. I mean, all the people who haven't seen it are now catching up with it, who
Mm-hmm.
are Oscar voters, and there's just a lot of warmth and positivity towards that film. Like there's a lot of passion for it. It seems very genuine. I think I actually will be most likely predicting I'm Still Here.
I don't
What
know.
about you?
I don't know because from a stats perspective, I feel like I have to go with Amelia Perez. This is tough because, and I said this to my team the other day, it's very, very hard for me to predict I'm Still Here just based solely on vibes.
That makes sense, but
is it based on vibes, or is it based on people being like, okay, whoa, like maybe I won't go so hard on Emilia Perez anymore after all that movie's been hit with?
I'm not really getting that from voters so far.
You don't think so? I mean, I think if there were no Emilia Perez controversy, I'd have no issue predicting Emilia Perez to win.
I mean, what do you think
I would be predicting Emilia Perez for editing.
I was predicting Emilia Perez for editing post-nominations.
I was too.
Actually.
The only reason I took it down was because of that. I thought it would hurt it in the categories where it's not obviously winning. So, and maybe it would have done better at BAFTA too. I don't know.
Even if we disregard Emilia Perez controversy and we assume the Oscars are in some sort of bubble, they don't even know about it. Would you say maybe still I'm Still Here has this surge of passion and people experiencing for the first time, and that could be enough in itself to beat Emilia Perez?
I would have felt so much better about this if I'm Still Here won the BAFTA over Emilia Perez, because that would be the indication that even with a Best Picture nomination at BAFTA, even with all the nominations it had versus I'm Still Here's one, that the controversy had caught up to it. Now, people have been saying, well, voting was open for quite a while, and maybe there wasn't time for any controversy to catch up to it quite yet. That's very probable. And voting, as we said before, is still going on for Oscar right now. So maybe now this is the time where it does catch up. I just, as a stats guy, it's very, very, very hard for me when I look at the history of that category and I see 13 nominations, right? Every branch of the Academy pretty much like voted for this movie. I'm sure there is some buyer's remorse. I'm sure votes have moved over. Is it enough? There's really nothing to go off of other than that. There's nothing else to really go off of.
I have 1 year. I have 1 year.
Okay.
I have 1 year.
Hit me.
Pan's Labyrinth, Lives of Others.
I was going to say that.
I would agree with you on that, but the voting was different back then. It wasn't open to the entire membership of the Academy.
Okay.
That's the only difference. Otherwise, I would agree with you from a stats perspective.
Well, because I also remember that The Lives of Others, if I'm not mistaken, was nominated for a lot of BAFTA awards the following year. So something about it was like catching on a little later, maybe.
Sure.
And Pan's Labyrinth got like 6 Oscar nominations or whatever. And
1-3.
Probably would have been nominated in the year of 10.
Yep.
Emilia Perez's visibility was objectively like so much higher than I'm Still Here's, and then arguably like they may have caught up. Like most people have probably seen I'm Still Here, so that's where
also
like
fresh
that's
on
where
it,
you're
right?
allowed you're very much allowed to speculate that it could win. I think it's a very fair category to like go off the stats.
So here's another one that's really bothering me. Going back to Conclave really quick here. Are we certain that it really is the editing winner? Because and I asked this question, I'm glad you're shaking your head, because I'm struggling to recall in recent memory. I know Witness did this many years ago, but a film winning screenplay, editing, and that's it?
Right.
Very odd.
Yeah.
Very, very odd.
I think any winner in the editing category is odd. Unless, like, Wicked takes sound and editing, or Emilia Perez. Like, it's all odd right now. We're
Anora would make sense.
I don't even think it does, because I get that it's winning Best Picture, but again, I wouldn't really make the argument that editing only goes to movies because like they're number one for Best Picture. I think there's usually another reason.
I was watching his video recently on YouTube from Carson Runquist, and he was talking about how the Best Film Editing category has a problem because they tend to just go for Best Picture nominees as opposed to films that have literally the best editing.
That's true.
So I feel like that's kind of like held true here with this category where Challengers isn't there, Dune Part 2 isn't there. So many worthy nominees are not there.
No, I think with the nominees, it's almost treated like a micro Best Picture category.
Right.
It often is. I agree with that.
So why wouldn't they just go down the line
because
and
they don't
go for it if they like Anora?
Because it's not treated that way when it comes to wins, I would say.
I've seen a lot of examples where editing is treated that way.
What's
what's
one
a
editing winner that you think like only happened because it was top 2 for Best Picture and that was really it?
Argo.
Argo was a thriller, like lot of editing movie.
What was that up against? Like Lincoln for editing?
Like you could have made the argument for other movies that should have won editing that year or should have been nominated for editing that year. You know what I mean?
I think Argo is a fair example, but also I think that's kind of it.
Like, was it really the best edited film of the year? No, but it was the best edited of those nominees.
Okay, it's kind of hard to find an example of a film like Anora that only wins editing because it's winning Best Picture.
And also, people think that the Anora is too long. Like even people who love it kind of admit this.
Well, if that's the case, then
lag
you
in a
can
certain spot.
rule out the Brutalist for winning editing.
Because
I
I also
have- I have ruled the
remember
Brutalist.
Parasite in editing was thought to maybe be a spoiler in that category.
Right, exactly.
And it wasn't.
And,
I think
Ford v
won?
Ferrari was like maybe
Ferrari,
number
right?
9 in Best Picture.
But Ford v Ferrari had the sound nomination.
Yeah.
Right, but it was also like
sound
the most
nomination
editing. Like
is-
it's just showy to have those racing sequences.
So of
Sound nomination is
the
important.
nominees, which one has the most editing?
I would
Amelia
say probably
Perez.
Amelia Perez.
I agree.
It's totally Amelia.
But
Perez.
I think it's fair that we're ruling that out.
Is it?
hasn't-
Wait, don't rule it out.
Okay, fine.
Sound
I don't
nomination,
think you rule
and
it
it
out.
also fits the description of most editing.
I think it's a potential spoiler, but also with the craft categories, I'm gonna go with BAFTA. Unless I have a really good reason otherwise.
Yeah.
Because BAFTA's usually very good with predicting that. And so I think that alone, the fact that Conclave won that alone is enough for me to go.
You can
and
also say that
Conclave's the most likely.
BAFTA win.
Not a guarantee,
But also
most
BAFTA
likely.
loves Conclave. They gave it Best Film. Probably not going to have an
Fair enough.
Oscar. So
It's
like,
I know,
maybe it had an advantage
like All
there.
Quiet on the
all
Western
along.
Front potentially, right?
Maybe it had an
Yeah,
advantage.
that's what
Yeah.
I was thinking of. That
So-
film picked up more wins at BAFTA because it won Best Film at
Yeah.
BAFTA. It won some of those at Oscar, but it didn't win all of them.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if a similar thing might happen here with Conclave.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I'm wondering too when it comes to sound is I know that everybody's so ready to say it's Dune, especially after it won
Mm-hmm.
BAFTA. And it's done well with the critics groups this season in that category. But we haven't heard yet from Cinema Audio Society and MPSE.
Right.
If they go another way, either with A Complete Unknown or Wicked, I might be tempted to switch to one of those to win sound.
So my problem might be a little similar to going with the VES over a BAFTA win for visual effects, for example, where one is voted for by the experts in their field who pay a little bit more attention to the details or
Yeah.
notice things that the average voter doesn't, and one's voted by the whole Academy. And so Dune kind of screams best sound. But there is a point, why would the experts in the sound craft go for Wicked, Complete Unknown over Dune? Which I don't know. If it did happen, I'd be like, okay, maybe that's not just nothing, you know?
I think there's two reasons why those two movies in particular could win out over it at the Guilds. One is the simple, they just like the movie more. That's the obvious route you could take. You could make the argument against Dune that, well, the first one won this award very recently. We should reward New Blood. It's doing very, very great work, but it's very similar work to what we've done. Visual effects feels to me like Avatar: The Way of Water, where it's not having that problem. Wicked is a Best Picture nominee in that category, but the visual effects don't compare to the
Yeah.
seamlessness of what Dune is doing.
How similar, though, do you think the sound category is to a visual effects category where they're perfectly happy in visual effects to keep awarding a repeat or a sequel movie?
Yeah.
I mean, how similar is sound to that?
It's interesting because don't you guys get the sense that because Dune came out so long ago,
Yes.
that everyone is just defaulting to Dune, but you don't really get the sense that there is real passion right now?
In terms of its overall performance, yeah.
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 It dipped so heavily in
Oh,
nominations compared to the first.
It absolutely suffered from
The release date.
the release date and also being a sequel. I think those two things combined are the reason why it doesn't have a fucking Best Editing nomination. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
But I still wonder if it's more like that visual effects category because it has
Yeah.
the most sound. It's so obviously the most. And also, when there's two musicals competing against each other, A Complete Unknown also feels like a musical. I don't know how you distinguish which film stands out the most.
If there was a sound editing, sound mixing categories, then maybe Dune would win editing and one of the other two would win mixing.
I do feel like Wicked is, Wicked would have a really good case for a sound mixing if we were in a year like that.
Yeah.
And I do feel like Wicked would be the spoiler, but it's more of a hunch, and it's also based on the fact that it overperformed with craft categories at the Oscars. Maybe Wicked does take a prize that we're not expecting, and maybe it is sound.
Whatever categories are we feeling certain or uncertain
I think
about?
we should talk about Best Actress.
Yeah, I think we
feel
might
like
want to
that's
circle
the-
around to your question of how many Oscars is Anora winning.
That is the question.
So yeah, Best Actress is a great category to discuss. I am now bullish that it's going to be Mikey Madison because I can't argue myself out of this prism. So first is that the BAFTA win is the most important acting win for Best Actress, and I think the leading actor categories in general. It's the most important. There's no better correlative, including SAG. And second is that you will take the edge in these categories when it's a two-person race, when you're closer or winning Best Picture. So that's been the case many, many times. And that was like the mistake that I made last year that I'm trying to learn from this year and not repeat, where Emma Stone won because her film was just closer to Best Picture. I mean, Poor Things was basically like a number 2.
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, and Mikey Madison's film is winning Best Picture.
How about this? Think about films that won Best Picture and they were led by a female performance.
Yep.
Not co-led, not ensemble, and there was a lead performance nominated. I'm talking there is a definitive lead female performance. Name me a time where that lead performance won one of the televised awards, but then did not go on to win the Oscar when its film won Best Picture.
Right. I mean, I think I reviewed this with actress nominees. And The Shape of Water, like Sally Hawkins didn't win anything.
She did not win anything, yeah.
But
Frances McDormand did for Nomadland. Michelle Yeoh did for Everything Everywhere
Other
All
than
at Once.
that, it's totally true.
In general, though, like...
No, not other than that. Like, there's no examples. Yeah, right. There's no examples.
In general, though, a BAFTA actress win doesn't just go nowhere. Joanna Scanlon, After Love, we can discount that year.
Nobody was nominated. Yeah.
But, like, it doesn't just go nowhere. You know, it'd be like...
You win the Globe or you win something
Like,
else.
I can't imagine the universe where Mikey Madison just took the BAFTA... And then Anora's taking home Best Picture at the Oscars, but it's not taking home Mikey Madison. Like,
I agree.
Most people were predicting Anora at the Oscars for Picture, Director, Screenplay. It didn't win any of those at BAFTA, and then yet it won Actress. And then it's not going to win. Like, I agree that I think that BAFTA turned it around. I think that you were predicting
I was
BAFTA to turn it around.
Yeah.
What did you think this would happen?
The thing that I kept coming back to was that Substance was not nominated for Best Picture at BAFTA. That was something that was really bothering me. And then another thing that's been bothering me for a long time, a very, very long time, because this is going back months now, is how every Oscar voter that I speak to, they feel a certain way about The Substance. Whether it's the final 20 minutes or an aversion to horror completely. There has always been some sort of bias with Academy voters specifically towards The Substance. We've seen The Substance get embraced at Golden Globe and at Critics' Choice, not Academy voters. And we've seen it get the nominations at Oscar. And it is
Had a great nomination package.
Right, and it is likely going to win makeup because it's won everywhere. But Demi Moore is in a very interesting place right now where if she wins SAG, she'll have 3 televised wins compared to Mikey's 1. If Mikey was not in the Best Picture frontrunner, the movie that likely is going to win Best Picture, I'd say Demi Moore's got this.
Yeah.
But that is the wrinkle. That is the thing that is tipping the scales here.
Very important.
Where you can even make the argument. You could. I'm not saying it's going to hold water, but you could make the argument that Mikey might even repeat her win at SAG as well because they just love Anora more than they love The Substance.
Yeah.
But SAG has more than any other voting body gone for narrative a lot of the time, you know? So I can see more prevailing there. Yep. And then at Oscar, we're all going to just have to hold our breath and see what happens. But I agree with you. It's weird to win BAFTA, literally nothing else. But here's the thing. In all the recent races we've had, if you won BAFTA, you did win another televised award. You won Globe Comedy Musical or you won CCA. You know what I mean? Like, to win just BAFTA and only BAFTA, there has to be a reason. McDormand's a great example.
Yeah.
And
Anthony Hopkins also in the lead category.
And once again, nominated for Best Picture.
And Anthony Hopkins,
Very
unlike
close to
McDormand, who like that category was split at every precursor, like Chadwick Boseman had all of the other awards up until BAFTA.
But the lesson that we all learned from that case was The Favre was nominated for Best Picture and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom wasn't. Right. That was the big difference maker.
I mean, it's still a difference that Anora's higher than The Substance on the ladder.
And there's no questioning that. There's literally no questioning that voters prefer Anora to The Substance. As a whole. It won PGA on the preferential ballot. Sean won the DGA. It won the WGA. Now, granted, The Substance wasn't there, but we're seeing a trend here, right? Anora got into SAG Ensemble. Not like The Substance got into SAG Ensemble. So clearly, there's more love in the industry for Anora than there is The Substance. Even though there is love for The Substance, it's not quite on the same level. I would put The Substance love on the same level as A Complete Unknown, where a lot of people overestimated the love for that movie with voters in the industry. It got the nominations, and the love is there, but it's not enough to have it be in the number 1 position.
Going 0 for 8 like Elvis, and Maestro was 0 for 7.
You know, I kind of agree with you. I think that if Timothy were to win SAG, I still think I'm going to predict Brody.
Yeah. No, I know I'm always tempted, like when I see the recency bias, But I'm really going to try this year not to be biased because I feel like the BAFTA and just everything up to this point has given me enough clarity. Like, Chalamet and Demi Moore can win their awards at SAG, and I don't care.
I would care if voting was still going on, but it won't be. It might be an indication of where things are at, but the SAG Awards this year are odd, right? Because they went so hard for Wicked.
Really fucking hard.
Really hard for Wicked.
They might still.
Yeah, they might give it SAG Ensemble. Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing, though. If they give it SAG Ensemble, it means nothing for its Best Picture
They did go really hard for Complete Unknown, too. I think that there's a fair argument that with Complete Unknown doing so well at SAG and Brutalist underperforming by a decent margin, that Timmy can still win SAG. It makes sense that they might want to go for, like, the more obvious, like, musical biopic thing.
Or you could make the argument that if you're a Brutalist fan and you have nowhere else to vote for it, you throw your vote behind Brody.
Yeah, I mean, he might sweep. Like, I think that's also possible, that he might just barrel all the way through. But, I don't know, them not having Guy Pearce is a little sus.
I agree.
Critics' Choice and Golden Globes also, like, they both nominated Margaret Qualley, and then BAFTA, Oscar didn't.
Right.
And they were more gung-ho about the horror performances in that movie, maybe in general, which makes me also wonder if Mikey Madison could just win SAG too.
Are you predicting it?
What if I told you I'm predicting more to win actress, but Anora to win ensemble?
That would make sense. I might do that.
I might do that. Because I was thinking, I said this at the end of our BAFTA video, I was like, at this point, does Anora not win any SAG awards? Like, does it not win anything?
Doesn't feel right, given where things are going, right?
Yeah.
And it wins casting at BAFTA. I mean, that ensemble is pretty flawless in terms of how they all mesh together. They're in the car, driving together, and, you know, they got great banter. It's funny at times. I could totally see it going there and winning ensemble, and then it's like, okay, Best Picture's all locked up. What else is it winning? Once goes back to my original question of, I think we can securely say Baker. I really do, based on trends of the DGA stat.
It would be insane for that to go nowhere. Like, it would be insane for him to win DGA and then Brady Corbet wins the Oscar.
The last time so I looked at DGA BAFTA splits just to see what happens.
Yeah.
It's always DGA, and the last time it wasn't when Rob Marshall won DGA for Chicago, and then Roman Polanski won along with BAFTA for The Pianist. Now, I think that the reason that this is an exceptional case is because Roman Polanski hadn't won an Oscar at this point. And also he directed like classic films from decades before.
But this was also Rob Marshall's first film as well.
Right.
They were not going to they were not ready to give him Best Director.
But look, Tom Hooper for The King's Speech and Michelle Hazanavicius, like, they were basically newcomers to the Academy. I mean, and they still won.
Those movies were guild sweepers, you know? Like, I mean, King's Speech won SAG Ensemble, it won PGA, it won DGA. Artist was cleaning up the entire season, like, with really no competition for the most part, other than, I guess you could argue, Hugo.
Yeah, I think that if you're going to be a newcomer director or someone that, you know, you haven't had films nominated before, you haven't had films, like, really widely celebrated before, your movie has got to be, like, way up there. And I think that's why Corbet lost the DGA. If I'm to hindsight it, you know, I was predicting Corbet too. Like, I caved like everybody else, and I was saying, oh, Corbet is going to win. Like, he's got the spectacle film. But I think that The Brutalist has failed to show that it is even, like, a top two necessarily.
No, it's number 3.
It hasn't won any guilds, and it's not going to.
It's this year's Power of the Dog. It's this year's Irishman. It's this year's Killers of the Flower Moon. It's the film that gets the nominations, that is really respected, but it really struggles to get those wins.
Although it does have a lot of wins coming up, I think.
Yeah. BAFTA really helped clear that up considerably, I think, with cinematography and score.
Yeah.
And if you have Brody coming along with that, there is a compelling argument to make that maybe they do just do Corbet as well. Like, it's like a Revenant kind of package.
It would have at least had to win BAFTA Best Film for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm just saying it's possible. I'm not going to predict it. I do have Baker ahead.
Corbet has had a great narrative that, you know, most people were convinced that he has what it takes to win director because he had the great story of making the film on such a little budget. But I think ultimately the industry might be looking at Sean Baker versus Brady Corbet and saying, I didn't know who Brady Corbet was until 6 months ago. And, you know, Sean Baker is a filmmaker who's had his time. He's earned his place in, like, the American cinema canon. He got the Palme d'Or. Like, I glitch out when people tell me that Anora's a screenplay movie and it doesn't make sense like as a directing winner because it's such an auteur film. Like Sean Baker's films have such a voice, such a style with the actors, even with the casting. I think it's underrated as a movie that like should win Best Director.
It's really funny you say that. I just spoke to a voter recently who literally said, and I quote, "It's directed like every other Sundance independent film I've seen." And I was like, oh, okay, But there's such consistency in Sean Baker's filmography in terms of that style and how it's been refined over the years. I do believe you, and I agree that this is one of those, it is time to recognize this particular filmmaker moment where Guillermo del Toro had that. Bong Joon-ho kind of had that too with Parasite, where it's like
Palm winner.
You've been doing really well over the years. We've noticed your work. The timing is right. And we just like want to let you know that we've always appreciated your work. And here you go. That does happen. I feel like it happened last year with Oppenheimer. Sometimes the director is the star of the Best Picture race in that regard. And I feel like that's happening this year with Sean. Also, too, another thing I'm getting a sense of from voters I'm speaking with, while people respect Courbet's vision for this movie and how he pulled it off, there is a lot of talk about a little bit of pretentiousness sometimes in some of his interviews and the way that he like comes across a bit more. And then it just comes down to a likability contest. It just should not matter, when you start talking about the Oscars as we should be rewarding objectively what you think is the best based on the film itself. But people just don't think that way. They really don't. And so, but this is another thing that has, I've just noticed this as a trend that like more and more people I talk to have just said, I've listened to him in interviews and stuff. And, he kind of comes across a little like odd or whatever. Like people say these like roundabout ways of saying, it's just like they're not really vibing with the guy.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's because maybe people feel like he still needs to prove himself. He's on a great pedestal right now where everybody's been proclaiming the film as, a masterpiece. And I think you can be like a creative genius weirdo if, you have like a Kubrick filmography.
Yeah.
And this is like the first film where he's proven himself to most people, at least like is starting to.
What I'm thinking about too is remember how last year we all commented on how with Nolan, I've never seen him be this open in interviews before. I've never seen him be this loose. I've never seen him be this friendly, like in a way where people thought that Nolan was a little cold and mechanical in how he would interact with press and at events for promoting his film and such. That wasn't the case last year. It really didn't feel like that at all. It felt like very, very different. And I think with Courbet, it's his third film. It's his third feature film. Childhood of a Leader, Vox Lux, The Brutalist. Let's come back to this when it's his ninth film, or you know what I mean, and see where we're at. I almost think of it like Ramel Ross, where it's like that achievement is so unbelievable what he did with Nickel Boys, but the industry is just not ready yet the way they are with someone like Sean, where there's been a track record of stellar work over the years. And I know that The Brutalist kind of took on this miraculous story of an independent film made for 10 million or less or whatever it is, right? But Baker has always worked in the independent film space, doing things DIY his own way. And with each film, it gets a little bit more than the last one in terms of budget and a little bit more in terms of scope. Anora still retains that independent spirit. A lot of times people will vote on Best Picture or Best Director based on, I wish I could have made that movie. That's the movie I wish I could make. And a lot of people can make an Anora, but they can't make it as well as Sean Baker does.
I think Best Director, if you're going to win without winning Best Picture, you got to be like a veteran. You got to be a Jane Campion. You got to be a Cuarón, Iñárritu. You look at the names of like Ang Lee. Like you just look at the list of names, and Brady Corbet's is a little fresh, I think.
Sean wins director, the film wins picture. If it doesn't win screenplay, because we pretty much concluded it's not winning editing, right? Like we're on the same page with that.
Yeah, I think it could. It's possible.
We agree that editing's a kind of crazy category, but I'm not going to predict it.
I don't think Sean's winning 4 Oscars for the same film in one night.
Much. Yeah. Now, screenplay, though, I actually think this is the most vulnerable category for it.
Interesting.
Because it should have won in these other categories. Like, in the same way that, if Brady Corbet was going to win Best Director, he should have won DGA. Like, I don't know why Anora was, like, missing these awards. I mean, I don't know why the Critics' Choice and the Bafta didn't go for it.
And WGA has a huge asterisk with it, considering how many films were ineligible.
At least A Real Pain was competitive at WGA.
Correct.
So, like, it
but
wasn't...
substance wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right.
I do think that A Real Pain is actually the one that could spoil, though. over
Which
the
is
substance,
so-
kind of for the reasons that you said. Like the substance is a little divisive.
I agree. It's so funny because had the substance won BAFTA, I would say, guys, we have a very, very interesting race here to talk about at this point. Since it lost
I
BAFTA
agree.
and it was A Real Pain, the big thing about A Real Pain is it's not nominated for Best Picture.
Like it
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is the last time that a film won original
And if
screenplay
there were
without
10,
Best Picture.
so it's
nomination.
never happened in a year of 10. It's
No.
never going to, like, it's never going to. I mean,
But you know what?
Yeah.
You know what though? We know that voters are watching that movie
Right.
because of Culkin's performance.
True.
So that's the thing that makes it a little tough, I think, too.
the concern that people had was that it would be disadvantaged by not being in Best Picture. Clearly, like, not the case for it. Just screenplay and supporting actor prospects just isn't the case this year.
Yeah.
Like, they've seen the movie, they really like these two elements of it, and it just wasn't high enough on their ballots for Best Picture.
Yes, it won a major prize at BAFTA. I totally understand that. But if you're comparing the BAFTA win versus the WGA win, where it was eligible to win,
Yeah.
and one film is nominated for Best Picture and one film is not,
Fair
why are we debating this?
Fair enough.
Right. And one's going to win, too. I think
But
you have
BAFTA's
to predict it.
screenplay has been pretty consistent with predicting the Oscars, like to the point where.
Well, this year they fucked that up. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what to say, right?
But usually
Anora
it's a
didn't win.
pretty important precursor.
Anora didn't have the biggest night at BAFTA. It's gonna have a bigger night at the Oscars.
Okay, so I'm definitely predicting Anora, just to be clear, but I'm kind of arguing that maybe it's the least certain category for it. That it's
out of the four.
No, I would say
I don't know.
actresses a little bit.
My
It's gonna
argument
win
for that,
screenplay,
that's
just
more of like
is.
a hot take.
I know that it's
I
been
don't think it's-
struggling, and it's been weird that it's been struggling.
Yeah. I mean, BAFTA is going against Anora in screenplay. We can basically just treat that like it hasn't taken place.
But it has taken place.
I was telling him that it reminded me of that one year where we felt like from the beginning, the movie that makes sense to win editing is Dune.
Mm-hmm.
It's winning sound. It has like the most editing. It's a big spectacle film. And then it just kept not winning.
Yeah.
And then we were like, well, what do we do for the Oscar? And it's like, well, we'll just go with Dune because it still makes sense, right? And then, I don't know. It just
No,
didn't.
Anora's still, it's probably still going to win.
Now, a lot of people argued when it won CCA because everybody does this thing where they try to justify the thing that just happened that they
Yeah.
weren't predicting.
I do that too much.
Oh, yeah, we all do it. The substance, everyone kept saying, well, it is the most high concept of all
Yeah.
the nominees in that category. It is the most original.
Yeah.
And I understand that. And I do think that there is still a path for it to surprise, even with just a CCA win, which I know is ridiculous because there's no voter overlap. But she did get up there. She did give a speech. And it is in that category of, like I said, of the most original of the nominees. It did win the screenplay prize at Cannes as well. Let's not forget that, too. I mean, that's going back a ways.
Yeah.
But this movie has always been on the periphery of, like, the screenplay possibly being awarded. It always felt like a nominee, especially once critics started going for it. Had it won BAFTA, I would actually go so far as to argue that it likely would be the winner of the category at that point over Anora, because winning CCA and BAFTA is like a really unbeatable combo in screenplay.
Right.
But because it lost here, I do think this race is fractured enough that it allows the film that clearly the industry likes the most to be the one to go ahead and pick up the win. And so there's also a case to be made too, well, if Baker loses director, which we don't think he will, but if he did, lately screenplay's been correlating more with Best Picture than Best Director anyway, right?
That's the award that people thought made more sense anyway for it.
Right.
I also remember Everything Everywhere. Early on, it was like, okay, screenplay is the award. And then we saw it winning director and screenplay. And then there were some arguing about Banshees winning screenplay and saying, well, maybe it'll win director and not screenplay. And it's like, I'm just going to go back to what made sense, like, originally, which is that it's going to win screenplay. And that's maybe even more comfy.
Remember when we sat on this couch and we debated the 2014 year in comparison to that with Linklater, Wes Anderson, and Iñárritu, and they just went all in on Iñárritu.
Just no spreading the love.
Nope.
Yeah.
They gave it picture, director, screenplay, and cinematography.
That has
And
happened enough times in the past many years.
I just feel like Anora is going to do that, where it's winning either 3 or it's winning 4 with Mikey. I just don't. I don't think Borisov is winning. I don't think it's winning editing. Maybe if we had ACE and it won the comedy category, maybe then I'd be tempted to say it would. But based on what we have in front of us right now, I can't go that far. Zoe Saldana, clean sweep.
Really think that she... So I still have a sense that Ariana Grande could win SAG. I know it feels like this whole, Grande could challenge Zoe Saldana thing is like dying out. But I don't know why is that impossible at SAG?
I actually think that the Amelia Perez controversy has actually helped Saldana because
she rises above it in a sense.
It's not her fault.
Yeah,
it's her co-star, and I almost feel like that makes people feel bad for her, in a way, and maybe is emboldening them to want to vote for her as a result. There's that element to consider. There is obviously the career element of being in these big blockbuster movies that have made a lot of people a lot of money. That's the thing, is that a lot of people cannot underestimate that Zoe Saldana has made a lot of people in Hollywood money.
Yep.
That's huge. And then there is actors who want to have the career that she's had. And they want to vote for her because she's having the kind of career that they, as aspiring actors, would love to have. I do think if Ariana wins, I do think it is because they like the movie more. They like the performance more. Yeah. It's a very likable character. It's a fun character. She is amazing in the movie. I was so impressed with her performance in this. I thought she was so much better than I thought she was going to be.
Yeah.
But she does not have the goodwill of the industry of proving herself. She's proved herself with this movie. But she hasn't done it, she hasn't, been in the trenches. She hasn't, gone through the many, many miles and the box office hits and disasters, Yeah. That does play a role in all of this.
Yeah, we definitely in general, narratives around actors who are, who've made careers out of it and who have struggled, from the bottom of the ladder to get where they are. And we've seen, their rise to stardom. Her stardom made it easier for her to get the role. Of course, the performance, it deserves all the accolades it's getting. I agree that Saldana has just taken off. Not only is she really good in the film, despite Amelia Perez, but her career narrative's great. I mean, it's as good as it could be. I think I will end up just saying that SAG goes her way, but I will be kicking myself if Grande takes one award. I actually predicted that Grande would win the CCA, and I was wrong. So SAG, as we've said, is very narrative centric, but I also think that they might be more sensitive to if a movie is considered controversial or something that they shouldn't touch.
Okay.
Whereas I feel that though, this is vibes. And also Bafta, I feel is less like that.
Yeah, but
and they also love Wicked. So if you put these together, there's maybe a world. But I think people are just seeing Saldana as separate from what's wrong with Amelia Perez and what went wrong.
I think that's been like that since day one. Honestly, I really do. The one thing it's most vulnerable in, as we said earlier, is international feature. Yeah. But Song and Zoe, I think it has those walking in the door.
Yeah, I don't see the argument against Song. I mean, there's nothing else. Diane Warren's not going to win unless people have heard her song. She's not going to get just Diane Warren votes to a victory.
I spoke to one voter who literally said, I don't care about this category, give it to El Mal, I guess.
Yeah.
that is
defaulting.
But that's kind of the mentality, right? It's the competition is, there are good alternatives. You could go for Sing Sing. You could have gone for Compress Repress or
give it to Diane Warren finally. That's what people are saying should happen.
But here's the thing though. This is the thing about the Diane Warren thing that I want to remind people of. Just because you give it to her doesn't mean that she's going to go away. She's still going to continue to make songs, and they're still going to continue to nominate her. And I think people believe that if we just give her the win, this is all going to somehow magically stop. It's not. John Williams continues to get nominated just for showing up. So I mean, if she has a Best Picture nominee someday, I think she'll do it. But until then,
or if her song's an actual hit, or to an animated film or something like that.
Why can't she just do a film in Best Picture or something that's winning animated feature? Why not? What's going on?
I don't think she's known for musicals.
Okay, well, why can't she just do an end credit song for any Best Picture?
Why does she have to do end credit songs for movies that nobody's ever heard of?
I know, the most random films.
I think it's because, to those films' credit, if I was a smaller film and I just wanted more publicity, I'd be hey, if we get Diane Warren to do the song, we might get an Oscar nomination, just cause.
Yeah.
But I don't know I don't know why bigger studios aren't doing
the Cheetos movie. It's a testament to her abilities to get nominated at all costs.
She has a lot of friends in the branch.
Yes.
She has a lot of friends.
A complete connections.
Yes. That is what it is.
Why can't she do a Top Gun Maverick song or something?
Have her compose a song for The Odyssey.
There you go.
Yeah.
And she'll win.
Chris Nolan, if you're watching right now.
I think he would love that. I think he'd love an end credit song in his film. Or maybe, maybe a during the movie song.
I mean, honestly, I really believe, like you said, If Chalamet wins, it doesn't do anything for me. I'm still going to probably predict
Yeah.
Brody. 3 televised wins against 1.
So do you think that Timothy Chalamet is winning SAG?
I am going to predict him to win there, but it's one of those things where, you know how like nobody cares about how you do along the journey, they only care about how you do in the end. If I get it wrong here, as long as I get my Oscar prediction right, then it's all that matters.
It's the destination, not the journey, as they say in The Brutalist.
There you go.
Is there any SAG win that could change your Oscar prediction? If
Kieran
Kieran Culkin
Culkin
lost supporting
If
If
actor,
Kieran
Norton
Culkin lost, that would be big.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
But
That
see,
would be
after
very big.
Real Pain wins BAFTA, and I'm like, okay, clearly, like, there's no issue here with the movie not being, like, in Best Picture. Okay, I mean, if Edward Norton won, you'd have to take it seriously, right?
if you're a
I
Borisov
think
one,
so.
you
If you're a
have
Borisov,
to you'd do that.
be
That would be
kinda nuts,
wild.
though.
Like, is Anora going to do a
It'd be
sweep
too,
then?
yeah, I know, right? Like,
You know?
That'd just be too
I'm
wild.
not seeing Yura Borisov making
No.
as much
No,
sense.
no,
to
no.
me. I mean,
I'm
Edward
just
Norton's
saying
on his 4th
theoretically.
nomination.
Edward Norton is really the last stand that makes any kind of legitimate sense. And we keep hearing all this talk about how A Complete Unknown is so well liked within the industry. I'm waiting to see this materialize somewhere.
Yeah.
And it hasn't
Get one
materialized yet in a win. So I do think if that does happen, I would be on red alert. I really would be. I would be like, guys, sound the alarms. He's in a Best Picture nominee. Culkin's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that category though is just weak, and Kieran Culkin's the only one who seems to be able to pull it off, and that's just.
I see no reason to bet against Culkin. I'm going to predict him to win SAG, and he'll have the sweep, and he'll be able to win the category
So-
without the Best Picture nomination.
Essentially, the only thing that matters for SAG is ensemble, because if Conclave wins that, then you have like more of competition for it.
Right, because then you can start discussing the Argo package of the editing, adapted screenplay, picture. But then here's the thing I keep coming back to with that. It feels very, very, very weird, right? To have Anora win Best Director,
Yep.
Screenplay, Mikey, not
It
win
would still
picture.
it would still win. Like
It's yeah.
Can SAG change your mind? The answer is like no. It can't. SAG
for me.
cannot influence your predictions at this point. It can't. I don't know if I can be-
Grande winning wouldn't change my mind.
Right.
Chalamet winning wouldn't.
Right.
I would consider Chalamet a little bit. A little doubt. Oh yeah. Doubt and not certainty.
But if Grande wins, could that be a sign of an Emilia Perez allergy?
Yes.
And then maybe we would have to consider, maybe it bodes well for I'm Still Here at International. Or something like
I think
don't
that
know.
would definitely be, because SAG voting ends on the 21st. This really is the last indicator of potentially I'm Still Here winning that category. But
Yeah.
you can still predict I'm Still Here just based on vibes. I just can't personally do that. I know a lot of people who are going to, and we have a word for that. It's called hope dicting, where there's really no evidence. There's like no statistical evidence.
The online hype for I'm Still Here doesn't necessarily equate to what's going on outside. And obviously the Emilia Perez hatred, we know that doesn't correlate to what's going on outside.
No.
So it's very easy to be online and say, I'm Still Here. I mean, there are people who are convinced that Fernanda Torres is like a really good shot to win Best Actress.
That all went away when Mikey won BAFTA.
I think there's maybe at best 15-20%, like at best for her.
Yeah, she's third place now. I kept saying this. Demi Moore would have to lose one or both, preferably both, and both of them would have to not be the Mikey.
Yeah.
And once Mikey won BAFTA, now it's like, well, somebody else could win SAG, like Sofia Rivo. Let's say maybe they just love Wicked so much. Sofia Rivo wins SAG, hypothetically. Under those circumstances, I could make an argument slightly for Fernanda
Yeah,
Torres,
I
but
agree.
she's still number 3 for me.
But I've seen so many takes about how I'm Still Here is a legitimate threat to maybe actress, and some even think like, oh, it could pull a coda and win Best Picture. And I think that is that you're looking at people getting really excited online about it. And
Yeah.
I totally buy though that like voters are into I'm Still Here, and if they all watched it and then we held voting again, it might even get screenplay
Yep.
or directing. It's partly vibes, but it's also very real factors that are going to play into it, which is that it is a loved movie, and people might like throwing their support around that, and it has more goodwill than Emilia Perez. Like, there are real factors for sure, but it's not going to be provable precursor-wise.
Certainty. Doubt.
It's together strong.
Wicked's going to have a good night at the Oscars. It's going to win costumes. It's going to win production design. It's going to have this medley of
Yeah.
Right? Arrivo and Grande performing.
Something like that.
Wicked's going to get spotlighted.
You mean it's going to win picture screenplay?
No. Grande, though, I know there's a lot of people that want this to happen. I really don't think it's happening. I know that SAG is the last stand.
It's just not her time.
And if she wins SAG, it's going to embolden so many people
Right.
to think that it is
It
happening.
still won't happen, though.
No. I could tell you this from some voters I spoke with. The feeling is that if he nails for good, they're going to go crazy for this movie next year.
But we've seen what happens with sequels. Like, they're very they don't do as well as the first.
But this would be the culmination of the story versus the continuing chapter in a series of many films.
Like, so you're saying the voter would say, "Oh, I love this movie, but it's just the part one. If part two is nailed, I'm going to vote for that everywhere I can."
There's a lot of people who feel that John M. Chu should have already been in the Best Director conversation, and if he nails for good, they're going to feel like more impassioned to want to vote for him.
But the director's branch...
I understand that. I get it, right? But, we do have some precedent with Lord of the Rings, obviously. Dune had an opportunity with that this year, but then they had to announce that Messiah was coming. Right. And I think that's what killed that movie's momentum, honestly, because now so many people have the mindset of, well, we'll just wait to see how that turns out.
I think there's going to be trouble, like... I'm imagining Wicked Part 2 gets 2 song nominations. It's obviously winning a song award. I don't think it's going to have a problem getting another costumes, another production design, but when it comes to nominating like Arrivo and Grande again, people getting nominated for the same characters 2 years in a row, like, I don't know. Maybe Jonathan Bailey's more likely.
Also for a film that was literally split in two. Like, it's not a different performance.
I think
it's Lord of the Rings.
For them.
Well, yeah, and Lord of the Rings.
They shot it all at the same time, and
Ian McKellen never got nominated twice for that.
Right.
I think the acting in particular. Like, I'm fine if we want to say maybe Best Picture. I think the nomination package isn't going to hit 10.
No, I think it could still get a lot of craft nominations are totally fair game for it, but like the actors are where I'm maybe struggling to see what could happen.
It'll be very interesting. Going beyond that, though, over into some more of the craft categories, it's nominated for score. I think after Brutalist won BAFTA, Brutalist has got that pretty locked up at this point.
I've always thought that was winning score.
Same.
So
it was good to see.
Of course.
Like, if Conclave had won there, I would have been like, I guess they're giving Volker another one. Honestly, I really would have defaulted.
I still would have. I don't know.
You would have debated?
That score makes no sense to win to me.
Just because
it's just not enough there.
Them loving Conclave, like if they went overboard on Conclave and gave it best film and everything, it's like, all right, well, you're the British group, like sometimes you go overboard for your faves.
Yeah. So you still would have held out for the Brutalist to win the Oscar under those circumstances?
With no evidence? I mean, I think I might have gone...
Hope dictating?
It would be hope dicting, but, it's what needs to happen.
I agree. I think it is the score of the year.
It's just inevitable. Like, that's how it felt to see it,
When he emerges from that boat and you hear those horns play and he sees the Statue of Liberty, it's like... This is winning score.
I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't make any sense if Volker won the BAFTA even. Like, it just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way that cinematography is also going to the Brutalist. I don't think it's going to be Nosferatu.
Even if ASC,
I think BAFTA
goes Nosferatu.
I got to go with Brutalist because it has the Best Picture nomination.
I agree also.
And the Brutalist has like the bravura of the 70mm, IMAX experience, like reviving that.
I mean, is there any category that you're not lined up with BAFTA in text? Because I think I might just go all text.
Sound is the only one depending on what the guilds do.
Yeah.
Okay. That's literally the only one I'm debating.
What would have to happen is if Dune loses both. Can Dune lose one and you'll still predict it?
It depends on what it loses to.
Or the one you're afraid of the most, I guess.
Wicked would be the one.
Okay.
Because Wicked has the editing nomination.
Here's the thing about the BAFTA crafts, why it makes sense to just go with them. Like, there was nothing really surprising that they did.
No.
Last year it was...
Editing is the most surprising, and that's like kind of it is a craft.
Editing
it's
treated
go
sort of
halfway as a craft and not, and that's why Conclave winning, editing, but then best film is like you could doubt it.
Hold on a minute. Like what? Like I'm just curious why you're so doubtful that it is Conclave.
No, I'm predicting Conclave. I just think that category is probably the most uncertain.
Yeah,
and also Conclave winning best film at BAFTA, like that being their favorite movie and winning best editing. Like, all right, like.
No, that's
of course
I'm agreeing with you that if we had to pick a craft category that I could predict an upset, I could see an upset happening in, it would be maybe editing.
I get sound,
maybe
one.
Sound.
I'm pretty good on all the texts.
I feel too good about.
I mean, last year was insanely.
This is the problem.
Yeah,
the problem is that I feel so insanely good.
Yeah,
that something feels off. You know what? Maybe the acting races are really sewn up, like we're saying. Maybe Baker and picture for Nora is sewn up like we're saying. Screenplay also goes to Anora, right? Adapted goes to Conclave, obviously. And then all the text line up. Maybe the big surprise on Oscar night really truly is international feature. Maybe it is.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna predict I'm still here.
Coda
You-
was the
oh.
most.
Yeah.
Wow, buddy.
I'm
Good
thinking
for
about
you.
it too.
Thanks.
Coda's the one
I
year
don't
that
know.
was the most predictable ever. As Gold Derby went all but one category. Now,
Oh,
if
the
this year,
The shorts.
no, I was
I
gonna
just
bring
thought of
up
the shorts.
The shorts are actually
that.
the most difficult out
Yeah.
of anything I've seen this year, and I'm curious if you have any insights you want to bring, because I'm looking at the live action shorts. I know that the man who would remain silent or whatever makes, sure, fine. Alien is so topical that
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but hold on. Beautiful Men is number one on
I don't blat.
Gold Derby. That one I'm
I don't
kind of like,
buy
I don't
that.
know.
No.
And I don't know if Yuck is maybe a winner, is
That's
kind of broadly appealing.
That's potentially possible.
Wonder to Wonder won the BAFTA. That seems like a possible winner, and it's very
Also
well
won at the
liked.
Annie Awards, too.
I might have to go with that one. That is where your predictions will be made or broken.
I agree.
I think that most people are differing in one or two categories, but the person who gets all three shorts right is going to be number one on Gold Derby, at the end of the
that's a good
day.
point.
So I actually might do more work than usual, like watching the shorts and stuff, just to see if I can,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know.
do you feel like watching the shorts helps? Because
Yes.
I remember seeing the shorts,
Yes.
and I was like, that makes sense if that one is going to win. Or,
Remember the
'cause
one...
you said
the-
it doesn't help for nominations.
No, it doesn't help for nominations, but
Right.
it definitely helps for winners.
Yeah.
Remember last year, the animated one, the John and Yoko, the John Lennon one? What was it called again?
War's
Oh,
over.
yeah.
I watched that, and it was so awful that I was like, that's so winning. Because it just was so broadly appealing that I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it definitely helps. You can't look at the shorts as highbrow, cinephile,
Yes.
brain.
Oh, that's totally true.
Yeah.
It's what would win the audience award.
Which one
If there was an
plays?
audience award, and then
Yeah.
which one plays?
And also too, they go for stuff that is competently well made. I've seen some shorts
Yeah.
that just have sloppy editing, sloppy cinematography, and I get it, they're low budget, but they don't tend to go for stuff that is on the low end technically. I haven't seen them all yet. I'm halfway through, so I can't speak fully, but I'm hoping to be all caught up in time for my predictions video, where I went 3 for 3 last year. I'm hoping to repeat that again this year. I just thought of something.
what?
No Other Land does not have a single industry
this
prize.
This is the one that's fucking me up the most.
actually
Yeah.
This actually really could go.
But neither does any of the other nominees.
No, Porcelain War won the DGA.
Oh, DGA. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Porcelain War
is
is a
DGA
Ukraine
correlative?
film.
Is it?
I didn't see it actually.
American
so-
Factory won the DGA, but it also won other things. I was looking at this earlier.
And I have the producing power of the Obamas and Netflix.
That's
or
the thing, is
whatever.
that the winners of DGA won other things. So yes, documentary has a lot of precursors, so things are usually split. But you can see that there's something that's winning 3 or 4 of the precursors in the lead up, and you're like, okay, that's the winner. If Superman were nominated,
Oh,
it would
easy.
so be the winner.
or Will and Harper or something
You think
kinda,
Superman would be the winner?
It won PGA, it won BAFTA, it won CCA. Oh my God!
I didn't,
yeah.
I didn't even think it was close to getting nominated. So
No,
that's
no,
funny.
but if
I
it
understand
had
how it works.
been-
I understand. Yeah,
if it
it's
had been nominated, yeah.
Sure.
I do think that there's no other documentary this year that speaks to the moment of the times that we're living in more than No Other Land in terms of just what's top of mind,
Yeah.
where we're at in 2024/2025. That to me is the film of the moment, And what I've noticed is that they do tend to go in that direction a little bit more lately. Looking at 20 Days of Mariupol as a recent example, and Novani, obviously. So
Right, but this is a different issue politically than the Ukraine war, where everybody agrees. Everybody's boo Russia and yay Ukraine.
Yep.
But not everybody. This Palestine-Israel issue is way more divisive, and so
yeah,
Yeah, you just look at the people who signed the letter against Jonathan Glazer. In Hollywood, that's not
Yeah.
in
a
Hollywood
consensus issue.
You're not really able
That's
to
why
speak
the
out.
movie
You can't
doesn't
speak
have-
out without backlash.
It's why the movie doesn't have
about this
distribution.
topic. Yeah.
And that might
Yeah.
also be what's hurting it, is that it doesn't have distribution.
but you know what though? It is on the Academy portal.
Yeah.
They can just watch it. It's right there. So that I never really hold on to that too much. I do hold on to that for nominations. But when it gets nominated, there's no excuse. You have access to it. You can just readily watch it at that
Yeah.
point. So
I can see people being like, I'm not gonna watch that.
I think that
people know what
I
they
think that's
think.
exactly the problem.
People
yeah.
know what they think. I mean,
And you know what? They think it's also a certain type of film as well. They don't know that it's about
They don't know.
a
Yeah.
Palestinian and an Israeli working together to make this movie tell this story, and
Yep.
how it is actually building a bridge between the two in a way that I just feel like that is the message that we should be promoting right
Yeah.
now, you know? And so, but people are just, they're just not even giving it a chance. And so when it lost to BAFTA, my heart really sank.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh my God, it does not have a single like industry prize heading into Oscar now. That does put it in such a vulnerable position. To me, there's no other film that's nominated in that category that it should go to. Other than I do like Black Box Diaries for the record. I love
that
Black
one a lot,
Box
yeah.
Diaries. Porcelain War is the only one that has like, you know, something legitimate in terms of the DGA.
what do you think about that
Sugarcane?
film? I mean, having seen Porcelain War,
It's good.
is it a like how much is it a like Ukraine like justice activism film?
I'll put it to you this way. I thought the other two Ukrainian films, Navalny and 20 Days of Mariupol, were better winners. But
Right. Does it feel like, hey, if I'm voting for this film, I'm voting like, yay, Ukraine?
yeah, I suppose. Like I said, I just don't have like passion for it, you know?
Yeah.
The same way I did for this or Will and Harper,
Right.
Black Box Diaries was
Have you
another
seen,
one.
Sugarcane?
Yeah.
Do you think that one has anything to it?
No, I can tell you that within the smaller doc circles, there are champions, but with a broader academy watching it, with, you know, voting being open to everybody, that film does not win.
Yeah. I think the category is so troubling that I might just have to like default to No Other Land, but there's so many red flags. I mean, you're right. If Superman was here, forget about it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
So that category, I agree, is actually kind of hard to. It could be hard to predict. I'm probably gonna stick with No Other Land because of the kind of like the subject matter.
I feel like we're all going to predict No Other Land. And when I say all, I mean like majority of people.
Yeah, and we might all be wrong.
We're all going to go down the ship together,
Yeah,
basically.
no, I mean,
And you know
very
what?
well.
You know what? I'll be
might
proud doing it. You know.
Yeah.
Like Mother Superior from Doom Part 2, and I was right to do it. You know, like
Yes.
I'm going down with the ship on No Other Land.
Anyway,
animated feature.
I was gonna say animated feature is actually not easy at all to me.
Oh,
I think it's easy.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
fine. We're fine.
I think it's Wild Robot.
Oh, okay.
Because
think it
Flo really needed to win BAFTA to convince me that it was competitive against Wild Robot, like Boy and the Heron did last year.
I understand that argument, but at the same time, like, were they ever gonna resist Wallace and Gromit? Like, did we really learn anything?
We learned that Flo is not as strong as we think it is within the industry. I understand Wallace and Gromit is very much a BAFTA British thing. I do think that with Wild Robot having additional nominations outside of anime feature, and I know Flo also has international, I totally got that. There is an argument to be made, but when one film has PGA, Annie, Critics' Choice, won all the Guild Awards that it was nominated for the most part.
Yeah.
A sound nomination.
Right.
Has an animated film ever gotten nominated for sound and lost? Polar Express. Okay, so the Polar Express, but the Incredibles was the same year and it won a sound award.
Yeah.
Okay, Monsters Inc. also lost to Shrek. Okay, Monsters Inc. nominated in sound editing didn't.
The first year of the category, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the sound nomination is really good for Wild Robot. I think Flo. I think we're a little we're trauma responding to The Boy and the Heron winning, but. The Boy and the Heron was Miyazaki.
Yes.
It's different. It's not just like a critics pick with Flo. Like it is.
But Flo is like in doing box office right now. It's doing well. At the
People
box
like
office.
Flo a lot.
and I'm seeing and people
it's
being
true.
very passionate about it, and I'm seeing a lot of like industry tweets about it.
If Flo wins, this really is a new Academy for Animated Feature, I think.
Right.
Because for many, many years we talked about the Disney Mafia. We talked about how the most popular film in that category wins by default. I really, really do think that if Flo wins with less of a precursor package heading in than Boy and the Heron had, and without the Miyazaki element as well, that'll just tell me that we're on a new trend, essentially, you know, that we need to keep in mind for future years.
I mean, I think we might be there now, and the thing that kicked it off is like Disney's decline in the category.
Well, and also the Academy becoming more international and opening up the voting to everyone.
I think Spider-Verse, as strong as it seemed, it was a sequel with another one on the way.
Yep.
Wild Robot doesn't really have anything wrong with it, other than that it hasn't won BAFTA and Golden Globe, I guess. But the Golden Globes, like, they are so new. They are such a different body that them giving it to Flo, I was thinking, would they have given it to Flea in the year where Encanto won? I do think that Flo could upset. I don't think Wallace and Gromit. I wouldn't take that seriously. It's just not beloved in the same way over here.
What do you give the odds for that category? Like Flo versus Wild Robot. Are you like 70-30?
I would say I'm 65-35.
Okay.
As soon as Flo lost, it didn't matter what else won. That was good for the Wild Robot.
I suppose so. I still like wonder if it would have won if Wallace and Gromit wasn't there. I'm not gonna say whether I think Flo or the Wild Robot is winning right now.
It is a predictions video, and you have to commit to a side.
So I think in a roundabout way, we've discussed every single Oscar category, and we will follow up with a final predictions video, I suppose, to lock everything in. But this has been your Oscar, Phil.
This has been your Oscar, Phil.
And this is Matt Naglio.
And if you like this man, allow him to plug himself.
So I'm over
Actually,
it.
that's...
That sounds pretty fun.
Can't say that.
Matt, where can everybody find you?
Up in the clouds, holy heaven. No, in all seriousness, nextbestpicture.com is one of the leading independent sources for entertainment awards coverage. It's where I reside on the internet. I have a podcast called the Next Best Picture Podcast. I've had both of these gentlemen on before, where we discuss everything that's going on in the Hollywood movie industry, as well as award season. We interview talent and do reviews as well. So if you guys are movie fanatics like we all are, head on over to nextbestpicture.com, where we are always looking for the next best picture Oscar winner.
It really is a fantastic hub for awards season, and in many ways, you are like the guru of awards. I believe in our time, within our time.
He's the expert.
Well, maybe so, but you may be
been-
the guru, creating like the space for awards and
thank you.
filling in that like need for that obsession. I'm also a patron for the podcast, which you can become a patron as well.
Same.
Thank you for being here, Matt. And you may close us out.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Which Oscar predictions do you have the most faith in?